We are also talking about the difference between the competencies and how the different factors of competencies can actually help the individual to be successful in his life. The various factors of competencies and the markers of psychological competencies were discussed briefly. That is about critical thinking, the problem-solving abilities, and also about managing information, resolving conflicts, developing interpersonal relationships, and having collaborative developing collaboration with other persons, and also trying to understand the cultural diversity of people and be able to deal with all sorts of diverse situations with a sense of positive attitude. Now, today we'll be dealing with the topic personality. We have been dealing with personality in different aspects in the different subject or in the different courses at the second year and third year of degree courses. But then here we look at it in the context of the effect of personality in developing life skills and also how overall the personality helps a person to also develop competencies. So the competencies, personality, and life skills are all interrelated. That is, for a good competent person, the development of personality and life skills is also very important. Now, if we look at the topic personality, we know that when we call a person he's having a good personality, that means he has certain characteristics. When somebody applies for a job, then they're supposed, somebody asks them to give you a review about the person who has applied. Then a person who has previously employed may say he has a good personality. Sometimes they say they do not have a good personality. So here, the personality means that there are many factors that characterize a personality, and these qualities are of immense importance at work, at home, and in all forms of social life. What are these personality? We generally talk about personality in adjectives. We call a person energetic, self-reliant, also somewhat enthusiastic, cooperative, cheerful, or depressing personality. No, these are all adjective words. Can we say that the person's characteristic style of action is personality? Yes. But then it is a combination of all the traits and patterns that influence a person's behavior, as well as his thoughts, as well as the motivation, and also how he emotes or how he responds to people. Now we know that we always think, feel, and behave in particular ways. And it is what makes us unique or what distinguishes us from each other. We know these patterns of behavior over a period become consistent. We face different experiences in life, different struggles, as well as different positive experiences, and all these actually accumulate and they try to form a sort of behavior. And here, what we feel, what we think, and how we react in a particular situation, and what sort of perception we develop, what expectations we have, and also what values and attitudes we show, all this together, the combination is known as a personality. Therefore, personality should not be confused with character, because character means making a judgment about a person's morals or ethical behavior. And we cannot also say temperament is personality, because temperament is somewhat hereditary, and some people we call he is temperamental or he is irritable or he is quite adaptable. And this sort of temperament is also a character of personality. It's a particular, what we say, a part of personality, but it's not synonymous with personality. And character, as I said, was a value judgment on how you think a person is. So personality, on the other hand, speaks from the subjective point of view as well as the objective point of view, and therefore temperament, of course, is also a somewhat biological. So temperament, irritability or adaptability may be due to several biological factors or health factors, etc. So totally, I can say that the character as well as temperament, they are parts of personality, and personality is determined by other factors also. Now, when we talk about personality, Persona means mask in Latin. Generally, what do we do when we meet people? We wear a mask. Generally, in the Latin or the other communities, they would wear a mask in some festive occasions, and these masks actually they cover as well as they show the person's face. It shows the general structure of the face, but at the same time, it tries to cover. So in social interactions, it so happens that the person's personality does not come out or it is not fully revealed. At the same time, there are inner parts of the psychological experience known as self and the outer part that is exhibited where people project or display their particular way of behavior. Now, in psychology, personality means a construct or an agency which explains the integration of different behavioral processes resulting in meaningful behavior. Now, we all know that the behavior has to be meaningful, and we say that different behaviors together integrate. We behave in different manners in different situations, but generally there is a specific way in how an individual behaves, and we are all unique in our behavior, and this characterizes the personality. So according to Kimball Young, personality is a patterned body of habits, traits, attitudes, and ideas of an individual, which are organized externally into roles and statuses, and they are related internally to motivations, goals, and various aspects of selfhood. Allport, another psychologist, defines personality as a person's pattern of habits, attitudes, and traits which determine his adjustment to the environment. So here personality is, Allport's definition talks about the adjustment of the person to his environment and how habits are formed and how attitudes and traits are formed as a result of interaction with the environment. We have got Robert E. Park and W. Burgess who say personality is the sum and organization of the traits which determine the role of the individuals in the group. Here we are talking about the personality as a offshoot of interaction with the social community and how a person organizes all his motivations, interests, attitudes in relation to environment. Now, according to this sort of in definitions, we can understand that there are two approaches to personality. One we can call as a psychological approach to personality, where every person is unique. He has his own individual style of interaction. And also we have the other approach known as the sociological approach, where the personality is thought in consideration with how a person behaves in relation to others or social groups. So we can say that there are two approaches. One is a psychological approach, which looks at the particular style or the unique dimension of the person and how he behaves from the what we call the subjective point of view. And also we have got the sociological approach, which talks about the status of the individual in the group and how he interacts with them. Now, if we look at the characteristics of personality, we all know that every individual is unique. No two identical twins are also, although they have similar traits and characteristics, even then they have certain differences. So generally identical twins may be having some qualities and attributes exact, but even then they vary minutely. So every person is unique. Then we can say organization of all the traits as well as the habits and motives, all this together, they make the personality. So it is an organized and integrated behavior. Generally, it so happens that the personality is not formed in a day, and therefore the different experiences one undergoes and the different motives, the interests and the habits one inculcates, the type of life situations one is placed in, their feelings, their attitudes and opinions, all these together make a personality. And the better organized they are, the better healthy and normal the individual is. So we require a type of organization of our motives, interests, and ideas. You try to channelize them, and generally the output becomes the personality. So organization of all these aspects of behavior is seen That is, a personality is the sum total of all the traits of a person and behaviors. Now, we also know that the personality is stable. That is, we find the consistent type of behavior in that person. Here we say this is because when we come see a person from situation to situation, we know that he shows certain consistent characteristics. We can say, for example, Rama behaves in a particular manner. He has a certain vibrant personality. He has an extrovert personality. So in different situations, he tries to behave in a similar manner, which is reflected in his behavior. Also, although this stability is constant, we know that individuals are always prone for certain influences by the environment. And in this case, besides the stability, the personality in a way also remains dynamic in the sense that people are incorporating new ideas, new experiences in their life. So personality is stable in the sense that the person with all his biological attributes may be behaving, his life experience attribute may be behaving in a particular manner from in different situations. At the same time, he also shows certain learning to what we call incorporate new things, new experience into his life. In that way, he is also dynamic. The most important part of personality is, and of any human being, I would say, is self-consciousness. And if people do not have the idea of self, then the personality suffers. Actually, the person must be able to feel that it is I or self that he is dealing with. So, self-consciousness is another factor of personality. We also know that the psychosocial systems are there. Personality is neither purely physical nor is purely mental. Neither it is purely hereditary nor is it purely environmental. So now organization of personality means that there are certain features which we deal with mind factor and some which deal with the body. Now, the psychosocial systems a person comes from, they are composed of habits, attitudes, also sentiments, etc. And also life experience of an individual in a setting. So we can say that both psycho as well as physical structure is also important here. And the personality is an offspring of the interactions of the heredity and environment. Coming to the personality, if it was only left to a person, then it is no longer a personality. So personality also means interaction with the society. So personality is also social. So when we talk about personality, we are talking about its existence when related with the external or the social world. Now, we know that personality is also acquired because of our interactions with people or in society. Now, as a member of different groups or societies or communities, we learn to show certain behavioral patterns. Now, we also have our ideas, attitudes, and values, but then we are also supposed to express them or deal with them or try to write about them or talk about them, and all these also become a factor of the personality. So, till now, we were talking about the different characteristics of personality. We know that the personality is unique, the personality is organized, the personality also shows a sort of stability in the sense that it does not change from situation to situation much in an adult, and also it is dynamic. And people who have good personality are self-conscious. It's a personality develops in psychophysical systems. It is also social in nature, in the sense personality develops as well as is shown and is manifested in social systems. Now, if we were to think about the determinants of personality, we know that a personality is determined majorly by three factors. The first would be the biological factor. If we were to consider the biological determinants of personality, we know that heredity, physical condition, the endocrine glands and nervous system, all these have an effect on personality. If we were to consider heredity, for example, we know that the personality formation is also attributed to heredity. There is this study, Minnesota study of twins who are reared apart, which talks about the genetic basis of personality. This was conducted on several twins from 1979 to 1999. I would say really on around 350 pairs of twins. And this study shows that the identical and fraternal twins can be reared apart as well as together. And we find that the research has shown that the identical twins, whether raised together or apart, have very similar personalities. Whereas normal persons who are not twins, that is the who are fraternal twins or normal persons, would differ in personalities. This shows that the heredity has a bearing on the personality. So we know that we can now say that some aspects of personality are controlled by genetics. Also, there are many twin studies which show that identical twins have higher correlation in personality when compared to the fraternal twins. Now, as you know, the fraternal twins are having different hereditary makeup compared to the identical twins who are exactly similar in their biological makeup. Coming to the physical conditions which influence the personality, we know that this is also a biological factor or which influences personality. And this would mean, for example, if a person is quite sturdy or if he is well built, he is generally accepted in society. Right from the school stage, we know that the children get attracted to people by facial attractiveness or body form. Now, physical differences, that is difference in height, weight, their color, and also complexion, bodily form, and defects, these all influence personality of the individual. For example, if we were to consider the height, if a person is of a short stature, he is easily neglected because he also feels a feeling of inferiority and he stays away. And if others person stays here. Similarly, with regard to the weight, if a person is overweight, we know that they tend to get discriminated and they are develop some inferiority feelings and they stay away from the groups. Coming to the physical defects, if a person is blind or if he's deaf or they have weak eyesight or weak hearing, we know that this directly influences the development of personality. They tend to stay away from people, and likewise, people also try to shun them, and this also develops gaps in the personality. Now, looking at the healthy and strong individuals as well as versus weak persons, we know that good health, good strength, energy, all these are respected, and these persons have better social life and they develop better personalities compared to individuals who are inferior in these aspects and they do not readily take part in all the activities or in competitions and they try to stay away. So we know that a physically inferior person develops an unbalanced personality and generally cannot take part in various activities of the institution. Coming to the other biological factors, besides the physical conditions, we can say that the other factor is endocrine system. The endocrine glands secrete hormones, and this is because they secrete their secretion directly into the bloodstream without any ducts in the body. Now, these secretions are called as hormones. These hormones, which are secreted by the glands, which are located in various parts of the body, are responsible for many changes in the personality. Now, different glands secrete either one or more hormones which affect personality. Some of these glands are adrenal gland, thyroid gland, pituitary gland, and sex gland of gonads. The pituitary gland or the master gland, which also tries to control the other glands like adrenal thyroid glands, they have an effect on personality and intelligence. They help in the growth of the body and the overall development. Their underactivity causes dwarfness and their overactivity causes giantness. And that is this gigantic structure, people who are bigger in size and whose who may have larger sizes, but their other mental and physical abilities or activities may be impeded. Likewise, if the dwarfness is there, here there is under secretion of hormone, and therefore this also impairs the physical and mental activities. We have got other glands like adrenal glands, which are nearby kidneys. And here we know that the malfunctioning or underactivity of these glands may result in Addison's disease. And this will result in impairment of judgment, loss of sleep, fatigue, weakness, etc. Now, the overactivity of the gland, in the other hand, they make the individual energetic, very vigorous, and also persistent. So we know that the overactivity and underactivity can have both some irritable effects as well as we see that they become sometimes that the underactivity may also lead to neurasthenic effects. That is, we can see them losing sleep, becoming somewhat nervous, and showing symptoms of over-fatigueness. This is with concern with adrenal glands. When we come to the thyroid glands, we know that the thyroid glands are also important. They are located near the neck. And here, if the overactivity of the thyroid glands, which are under the control of pituitary gland again, if the thyroid glands become overactive, then the individual becomes restless, irritable, worried, and unstable. On the other hand, the underactivity of this gland makes the person very sluggish, sleepy, dull, and lethargic. This underactivity of the thyroid gland is known as cretinism. So we have got the underactivity of thyroid glands known as cretinism, and the overactivity of the adrenal glands or the malfunctioning of the adrenal glands known as the Addison's disease. So we know all these glands have a role on the body as well as the functioning, and this also would impact how a person is acting or behaving. That is, the health of a person which is dependent on these glands may also show some sort of effect on the behavior. There are other glands known as the sex glands or gonads, which develop after puberty, and they exert great influence on the sex life of the individual. Again, they are under the control of the pituitary gland. When the sex glands or gonads are overactive, they make the individual hypersexed, or we call them as the oversexed. On the other hand, if the gonads do not function properly and are underactive, the sex urge becomes weak. Compared to all the glands, we also have the nervous system, which plays a vital role in the development of the personality. All our intellectual abilities, the motor abilities, our physical strength, and ability to adjust to the environment, and also our stability, and all depend on the structure and of the nervous system. Any injury to nervous system will alter this sort of stability in the human person, in the human being, and the personality of the individual. We also know that the nervous system is also important because the brain and the other parts, major parts like medulla, cerebrum, cerebellum, they all influence the learning activity and learning capacity and memory. The development of personality is also dependent on this because directly this is influenced by the nature of the nervous system, and indirectly because your intelligence and rationality and how you act and your motivations and interests are also influence your social patterns. So it is evident that the development of personality is influenced by the nervous system. We know that the brain has been what we call, it is divided into several lobes to actively associate with certain functioning. And we know here the frontal lobes have a specific role in personality development overall. The frontal lobes are really the emotional control centers and home to the personality. Also, suppose if a person were involved in an accident and there are brain lesions, we know that this also impairs the person's ability with cognitive skills as well as emotional skills, and also sometimes we find that the person also has an impaired personality because of such accidents. This is because the frontal lobe gets affected. This will result in what we call problems in motor functioning, problem solving, spontaneity, communication, memory, language, and also judgment and impulse control and social behavior. So this is how our whole interaction with the world and our behavior is dependent on the nervous system again. The frontal lobes are very much vulnerable to injury because of their location front of the cranium and their large size. So the frontal image lobes, if they are actually destroyed or they are affected during what we call during any accident, it is possible that they will also result in changes in the behavior of the person. That is why when both lobes are involved, the frontal lobes, in any accident, we see more drastic changes in the personality. Left frontal lobe damage generally results in depression, and right frontal lobe results in damage. Any right frontal lobe damage results in pseudo-psychopathic conditions where the person is shows certain conditions like rage, and also it is a psychopathological condition, but at the same time it is called as pseudo because it is not pure psychological pathological condition where it is manifested as a disease or the condition is seen. At the same time, the conditions are somewhat there down below, they are suppressed, and therefore it is known as pseudo-psychopathic condition, but the conditions do exist, and therefore the person shows sometimes a violent behavior or rage behavior. Sometimes they break down things and they are show outward expressions of rage, etc. Now, this is how the accidents can also result in damage to the brain, and this will result in changes in personality. Now, this personality, besides the biological determinants of personality, the next would come the psychological determinants of personality. We know that the psychological factors play a big role in functioning of the human behavior. That is, if a person is motivated enough and directs his behavior towards a specific goal or objective, we know that they fare well. Otherwise, persons who have low motivation level, they do not fare much in society, nor are they able to achieve their objectives. So, motives are important for a person to succeed in anything, and this will result in the changes in personality. If we were to look at motives, we know that people have three types of motives generally. Sometimes people want to achieve more. They want to have a high need for achievement, and also sometimes they would require challenges, but not too many challenges, and they enjoy tasks when they are successful. They want what we call applause, and at the same time they take pride in tasks, and when the feedback is given, they are happy and that their performance is good. So this would mean that they are achievement motivated. Then there are people who are interested in having power. Generally, these people give directions and try to control people and also the situation, and this makes them a very dominant personality. So here, the power motivation is more important. The people who are having this power motivation, they try to achieve this motive, and they are motivated to see that this power motive in them gets satisfied, and this is how they try to become a dominant personality and try to control the people around them. Then there is another motive for people to act besides achievement as well as power, and that is affiliation. Some people want to affiliate with things or society or the communities they work in. They want to leave more pleasant emotions around other people. Here we find the people are warm, communicative, they smile more, they try to interact more, they laugh and they make eye contact, and all these make them a very friendly personality. So generally, when we talk about motives, generally people work from any one of these motives. Either they want an achievement or they want an affiliation, and some people operate only from the point of power motive. Motives are important for a personality because when a person tries to exert himself in a situation, it is that motive or the goal to reach something which actually helps him to put in action, that is, exhibit his personality. Next comes this another psychological factor, that is interest. Now we know that the kinds of interests of people, we talk about hobbies and interests, that is what activities or interests a person engages in that determine the type of personality a person has. For example, if somebody is interested in playing a guitar or interested in playing a keyboard, that means he has to interact with people and also exhibit his skill in the group or community. And this would mean that he's more interactive with people. And somebody is interested, for example, in gaming or in some skill like where computer gaming or where a sole individual is involved. And in such sort of interest, actually, they tell us that the individual is more interested in staying aside. His interests are only solitary and he is less sociable compared to other persons. Also, there are certain interests like sports, which make people interact, also collaborate and compete. And here they're trying to improve their self-concept. So the interests of a person, they tell us about what sort of person they are and what sort of personality lies behind. So when people are around other people, this develops the social skills, and when people are alone here, they are developing their personality, but they are less sociable. Comparing to the other psychological factor, we talk about attitudes. Now, we say attitude is not developed in a day. It is a lasting feeling, beliefs, and behavioral tendencies that one develops towards either people or groups or ideas or issues or objects. So, a general way of thinking about, say, people, organizations, beliefs, ideas, ideologies, issues, all these become attitudes. Now, a positive attitude is very important for a person because this positive attitude helps in the enhancement of the personality through positive traits. The admirable traits help an individual develop professional and personal respect, as well as they develop some aspect of his life. Whereas now some of the negative traits or negative attitudes actually try to lower the self-concept in a human being. So the positive personality traits that can be developed are enthusiasm, optimism, adaptability, having esteem for oneself, and having confidence, self-control, and respect for others, and respect for others' feelings. And this becomes the attitude. So attitude is another psychological factor which develops over a period of time, but at the same time, a positive attitude has a bearing on the personality. Now, coming to the intellectual capacities, we know a person who has more IQ is also has more toughness. He has more leadership skills. He has more emotional stability. And he also discloses himself openly. That is, a person with high IQ has all these abilities which help him to better his personality. And a person with low IQ or intelligent quotient, we see that he does not interact much with, and therefore he seems to have a low personality. So personality is also dependent on all these psychological factors beside the biological factors which I have been telling. So I would say the psychological factors which are influencing the personality are the motives, interests, attitudes, and the intellectual capacities of an individual. Now we would like to go to the third aspect of determinants of personality, that would be the social determinants. We know that every individual is born in certain community or by a culture. Every society has its own cultural heritage, which is transmitted from generation to generation. We are not born in isolation, but we are born in a society. And this social heredity is the culture. The culture refers to the total life activities of the society. What we feel, what ideas we get, what we tend to develop, all these are an offshoot of the society. Now, biological inheritance may be the same. We know even whatever the little difference we see is only chromosomal difference is only point, not one. But here, when we consider the world in all its diversity, we know that there is diversity in cultural traditions. We know that their cultural conditions differ, and the person's uniqueness in different countries rises from the fact that the people are from different cultural groups. Now, also besides this cultural groups, in social groups, for example, at home in a particular country, we see that the parents, the peer groups, the social climate, the school environment, the culture, all these have an influence on individual development as well as their personality. Let us consider one of the most important as well as a single agent of socialization, that is family. We know that the personality is formed by the family, especially in the early years of the child. The family is where the children establish their first choice, that is how they learn their language, how they learn their emotional abilities, and how they internalize the culture. How the people interact within the family, it becomes a model for their interaction with the society. And most of the traits one gains as a childhood, they're also applicable in the social life. The parents are other factors which actually influence the personality. For example, if we have a sympathetic father and an understanding mother, it is also seen that the people are more acceptable and they have rewarding traits. The personality develops is a more well-balanced sort of personality. On the other hand, a dominating father or nagging mother may lead to emotional instability, shyness, and hostility. So the nature of the father and mother, what sort of personalities they have also has a bearing on the individual's personality. The overprotected child, for example, may develop a habit of dependency. They also may become selfish and have little consideration for others. So we know that sometimes when children are rejected, they show social timidity and fear. So when opportunities are created by parents for children, as to participate in social events, that also helps in the personality development of the children. Parents who communicate the norms and the expectations of the society and tell their children how to behave in society and clearly tell what is anticipated from society, those parents can see that their children also develop the societal norms, and this helps in a well-balanced personality. Children also show appropriate behavior and attitudes if they come from such, if the parents give them such guidelines. Single parents or people coming from, or the children coming from the families where there are conflicts or imbalances or fights, these people also have a negative attitudes as well as their expectations or goals become variant or somewhat different, and we see that their personality are not well brought out. Now, the contribution of the parental practices to children's personality cannot be viewed in isolation. We know that it is a complete part of complex system, and a parent-child relationship is somewhat unique, and we cannot compare a parent and child with another parent and child because each shows a unique sort of behavior. Now, let us consider about siblings. Siblings are also important. When a child is dominated by older siblings, we see that they become somewhat suppressed in their emotions and introverts. Similarly, if there's more action between siblings, we see that there is more affection between the siblings. This develops a positive personality. The quality of the sibling relationship and the gender of the sibling relationships, which is again determined by social constructs, this will help the personality of the individual. The family atmosphere is another aspect. Family atmosphere, if disruptive, will produce disrupted, delinquished, and backward children. And these personalities are also maladjusted. Whereas if the members of the family are cooperative and the atmosphere is good, we see that it has a bearing on the personality of the children. Depending also on the size of the family, the income of the family, and the number of the children in the family, and the order of the birth of the child, we find that there are differences in personality in children. The cultural, economic conditions of the family also affect the personality. So, the school environment is another major determinant of personality because the child spends most of his childhood as well as adult, what we call the adolescent period in the school. And we see that the success or failure in the school settings also has a bearing and plays a vital role in the development of the child in future years.
The teacher's personality is one more important factor in the school setting, in the sense we know that the children get influenced much by their teachers, the teachers' attitudes, beliefs, ideas, habits, ambitions, aspirations, sentiments, as well as their directions and their emotional maturity and their own attitudes and opinions. And the complete development of the child may take a good turn in the hands of a good teacher. The curriculum of the school, if it is dull, may determine also the personality. If it is dull, the personality may not be so vibrant. Whereas if a active curriculum where there are a number of activities as well as interaction, the scope for various types and methods of learning, as well as new sorts of subjects, as well as scope for expressing the student and chances for learning, these curriculum may actively help the student form a vibrant personality, whereas the dull curriculum may actually influence the student to not experience much of a life experiences, and they become dull and they do not know how to interact with the society in later stages. The methods of teaching and co-curricular activities of the teacher or of the school may also have a bearing. For example, if there are more field excursions involved, field trips, assignments, projects, hands-on learning, the type of the persons, how they become what we call forward-looking as well as open, that would differ in closed settings where the teacher takes the control of the situation and their curriculum is much closed. The school does not allow for much interaction. So the curriculum, the teacher, and the methods of teaching and the co-curricular activities and the general atmosphere in school, whether it's closed or open, or whether it is congenial or not congenial, or whether it is free or discipline, all these have a bearing on the child. Now, also, the confidence of the child is a result of the interactions of the child with the school and the atmosphere, along with how they interact with the peers. The peer group or the same age group with whom the child stays most of the time outside in the school settings, or maybe in the playtime, these children, they spend much in the time company of the other children. And we know that all the social characteristics or the mingling of the people at this age or at adulthood, they actually are grow, or they imbibe them into their own personality. Now, these characteristics develop due to the peer group interactions. We know when people become adults, they try to interact with the people who are of the same age or of the same disposition or same social and economic status. But when it is children, we find they actually try to identify the people with whom they can imitate or identify with. So most of the personality of a person is determined by the peer group also, the peer with whom the child likes to interact, or he influenced by. Later, the same type of people also in future life he tries to adapt or get influenced by. So it is the early interactions which have a great influence later in the social lives. Coming to the culture and society, we know we are all brought up in particular settings, cultural and social settings, and the socialization, that is the selection of school, peer, clubs, and all these have an influence of our personality, and also our culture, the influences of thoughts, speech, and ideas. For example, when somebody comes from a nomadic tribe, they have a different culture when compared to an American culture or Western type of culture, or when compared to the Asian type of culture. So this type of cultures are there because people, when they are brought in different cultural settings, they come out with certain social traditions, mores, and this make them acclimatized or easily understand their own cultural settings. An educated, well-behaved society or nations, they nurture the nature and the personality of an individual, because the more exposed the person is, or the more open, wider, or the more civilized the society, the more we have the persons who are having open as well as charismatic personalities. So the influential personalities are those who come from open societies, more interactive societies where there is flexibility as well as intellectual cooperation. So the culture and society have indeed a bearing on the person. Also, we know that everybody have their own personal experiences. We sail through life and we know everybody have their unique and individual life experiences, and such experiences can be sometimes be positive and sometimes be negative. For example, if somebody is exposed to severe illness or like COVID or accidents or traumatic experiences, we know like loss of parents or any other losses of wealth or say limb or anything in accident. So all these losses can have a bearing on personality. They may become sad or depressed. These are all negative experiences. They do affect our personality. In extreme cases, this also may result in behavioral abnormalities. They may severely withdraw from the society and they may prefer to stay by themselves alone. Whereas success, achievement, thrilling experiences, like meeting with great people, unexpectedly getting good recognitions, etc. These are all the positive factors which contribute for a better development of society, as we know that positive feelings develop positive attitudes. So a single positive experience sometimes may help a person to change his whole attitude towards life, and this will develop into the person's ability to develop a good personality. Now, we know that the personality is influenced by a number of factors. The personality in an individual is a product of continuous and accumulative interaction between various factors. It is not one factor determining at any point of time. We should always bear in mind when we try to say a personality is good or not bad, that there are several reasons for these things. We should not be judgmental when we are trying to assess a personality or when we try to compare the personalities of people, because they may hail from different backgrounds, socio-cultural backgrounds. And also when we pass judgment, we should be what we call empathetic to the fact that they may have certain factors, that is biological or social factors, which may have inhibited them from developing a full personality. And a personality is always in the changing process. There is scope for a development of personality if there is positive attitude. And keeping all these in views, I think personality is continuous, dynamic, it should be well developed, there should be scope or what we call a positive attitude. So development of good personality, one should always try to improve one's personality. So here I'd like to sum up what we have been trying to understand today, that a person's individual personality is a combination of all the traits and patterns that influence our behavior, thought, motivation, and emotion. We know that every individual is unique and every individuality has two main approaches to study the personality. One is the psychological approach, where we say that a person is unique or has a certain peculiar style to himself, and the sociological approach, which says that the individual works in relation to a group and it is the individual status in the group which actually is known as the personality. So we have the psychological aspect of personality as well as the sociological aspect of personality. The personality of an individual is shaped by many factors, and it is the accumulation of all these factors. These factors are both cultural and psychological. There are many factors. The biological, the psychological, and the sociological factors, and all these factors have a bearing on the development of a personality. With these aspects, we'll come to a close, and tomorrow we'll be dealing with the life skills aspect. Thank you all.